Welcome to the Value of Recruitment podcast with me, John Brooks. Sponsored by Atlas, the recruitment platform helping you become an AI-powered recruiter. This week, my guest is Benjamin Mena, Managing Partner at Select Source Solutions and host of the Elite Recruiter podcast. As well as being a great recruiter in his own right, Benjamin has interviewed hundreds of top recruiters on his podcast, so he has some incredible insights on how to add value to your clients. In our conversation, we talk about the traits and habits Benjamin sees in the top performers he interviews and how that translates into a more valuable offering. Benjamin shares his journey from being just a recruiter to the majority of his revenue coming from consultancy work with his clients. We talk about how recruiters can make that shift and why we're in a great position to offer strategic advice to businesses in our niche. Benjamin has an incredible passion for recruitment and for the value he creates for his clients, which is something we can all learn from. Enjoy the show. I hope you find it valuable. Benjamin, thank you for joining us today.
Excited to be here. It's weird being on the other side of the conversation.
Yeah, well, love to be here. You interviewed me on your podcast, the Elite Recruiter podcast, a month ago now. Feels like a long time ago. And you brought so much energy to that, and that was a really interesting conversation. So I hope I can give you a platform to share your wisdom as well.
I hope I live up to your expectations.
Well, my expectations are very high because, firstly, you are a great recruiter and you have a lot of insights. Secondly, you've interviewed about 200 other top recruiters on your podcast, which I highly recommend. So you have a lot of expert insights about recruitment from your experience and from whatever 200 other recruiters. So yeah, please share because we're keen to hear more. So we're going to kick off today with the biggest question. How valuable is recruitment in your eyes?
So I think that's an interesting conversation and an interesting question. I think it's a smart question that you definitely asked at the beginning, because here's the thing. Outside of recruiting, people don't give a shit about recruiting. They don't give a crap about how we do things, like how we feel about the candidate experience, how we feel about finding these people, all the work that goes on behind the scenes. Companies don't care. Well, I mean, they do care because they need the people. But here's the thing. Recruitment is one of the most important aspects out of every single organization out there. And let me just take a few steps back. Like, I'm in the government contracting space. And for those that are in the UK and not familiar with what GovCon is, government contracting is like the whole wide world of an industry that supports the US federal government. And in this world of GovCon, recruiting is one of the most important things to our national security. If recruiting fails, our country fails. So when it comes to how I believe about recruiting and what I think about how important it is, yeah, when I'm sitting there trying to find a software engineer to work on a missile defense system, because one of my buddies is overseas right now, I know that me finding the right person can save my buddy's life. Me not finding the right person, my buddy can die. So when it comes down to how important recruiting is, I believe it is one of the most important things in careers and jobs and missions that somebody could take on, because you are dealing with somebody's life. You are literally changing people's lives as a recruiter.
I love the passion and the belief in your worth. That's amazing. And what's really important to point out, I think, is most recruiters come across the opposite. So I was talking to someone this morning and they were like, oh yeah, you're at a party and you're like, hey, I'm a recruiter. And everyone says, oh, and rolls their eyes at you at best. And you've got an answer that, yeah, it's passionate and it's got real belief in your value. Now, you must see what I've just described.
I mean,
go on.
It didn't start out that way. And real quick, do you guys have this place called Walmart over there in the UK?
We know of Walmart. We have.
Okay, so at parties, there are times where I don't want to say I'm a recruiter because I don't want to talk about job stuff all day. And I'll sometimes at a party and just be like, oh yeah, what do you do? Because in the DC metro, everything is what do you do? What do you do? I'm a Walmart greeter. And you should just see like people's like eyes gloss over. I'm like, cool. But back to what I want to say is I didn't always believe that way. And it's like belief is one of those things that it comes and goes and you have to constantly work on. There were many years I hated being a recruiter. It sucked. It was like one of the worst jobs out there. Like I had no clue what I was doing. But I started getting around these like top billers and they had like a way to internalize and completely reframe the internal belief that what they did. And many of them, that's one of the reasons why they became the best at what they did is because they believed it to the core. And like, that's something that like some people have. I didn't have that to start. I had to like grow that myself over almost 2 decades in this space.
And how does that feel looking back at you with less confidence in your worth? You know, when you were sitting in front of a client, for example, back then versus you now saying, hang on, I am here to save people's lives. How does that change how you talk to clients?
I mean, like, it really, I don't want to say like it changed, but it just went from like, I don't know what I'm doing to, I mean, at least at the moment right now, just the way that we're with business. Like if a client comes to us and we don't feel like working with them, we're just like, all right, cool, whatever. It is what it is. Like, this is what we're doing. Like, guess, like, here's something to also think about. In the DC Metro, there's 28,000 recruiters, and that's a combination of internal and agency. But on top of that, there's plenty of businesses. Like, you don't have to work with everybody. You don't have to, like, if work comes to you, you don't have to sit there and accept everything. You like pick and choose what the right customers are, and that also helps your personal belief.
Yeah, that's a really good point. If you're trying to chase everyone and trying to be everything to everyone, you're going to come across as desperate. You're going to come across as needy. Clients aren't going to see you as valuable. They're going to see you as, you know, chasing business.
I mean, they're chasing business, but like one of the things that like we structurally understand about the government contracting business is we actually have a lot of people that reach out to us and we tell them no, that we won't work with them because of the way that the government contracting industry is set up. So in reality, government contractors are super complex staffing agencies. Like all these Lockheed Martins and Boeings and L3s, like outside the small teams that actually develop a product, they're all super complex staffing agencies. And the way the federal government works is many times the lowest bidder wins the work. So when they come to us, many times they're like struggling to fill a position. So we have to sit there and do like a bit of a deep dive into the conversation and understand like, okay, how'd you bid it? Oh wait, you bid it to win it. You didn't bid it to fill it, because if you bid it to fill it, you actually would have not have won it. So you are sitting there trying to find like a XYZ TSSCI security cleared person with this certain skill set to work at this location 5 days a week, but you bid at 20% under market. We're not going to waste our time. Like we could, like, it's a lesson that we learned early on in our recruiting business was in the government contracting world, which I have a huge passion for. There's also 1,000 ways to never get paid. And so we had to learn many of those ways to not get paid, to understand like, hey, what's a good client? What's a client that we could work with? And then on top of that, like there's occasionally we get something that like maybe the rate sucks, but man, if the mission's awesome, screw it. I'm all about the mission.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of being in control, running your own business. You can choose what you want to go after and you can choose what you value. You can say, hey, I like that mission. That's part of my value. That's part of what I want to work on.
And like, sometimes like you just meet a leader and you're like, I like you. Like, I love what you guys are doing with the team. I love what you guys are doing with like the client and the customer. Like, I can help you guys out there.
Yeah. Reminds me, I spoke to a recruitment leader in Ireland a few years ago, and he said, our strategy is simple. We go after high value, high margin clients. And what he meant was, we look at our potential client base and we look at how they sell, how they run their business, how they sell to their clients. And if they're trying to be low margin, if they're trying to be Walmart, then they just say, yeah, you probably don't have enough money. You probably don't make enough profit to then pay us to find you the best people.
And you could find that in the intake call. Like, occasionally you say yes to something that you're just like, man, I shouldn't have, and it always blows up in your face. Like, trust your gut. But like, like the intake call is one of the most important things where you're just like, okay, how did you guys win this? And like in the government contracting world, there's the government awards the work to what we call a prime contractor. And typically a prime contractor is required to have XYZ amount of teaming partners, which we call a sub case. So many times that like one of the initial conversations, if they're prime, we're like, cool, we love you. But if they're sub K, like, is this a guaranteed work share? Like, do you actually have this position? Or is this what we call a jump ball position where they're like the prime contractor gives sends it out to all the teaming partners, which could be like 3 to 10. And some of those have staffing agencies. All of a sudden, like, if it's a jump ball, you're like, wait, there means there's like 17 to 20 companies working on this. I'm not going to waste my time. I know somebody else said yes to that, but I'm not.
Just a sub note on the value of a niche and expertise. Like all that jargon, you've got your jump balls and your whatever. You need to be in the market to know what exactly you're talking about. But well explained, thank you. But yeah, you can't just jump into GovCon and be like, hey, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. So you talked. I mean, we have a stat in the UK that there's 30,000 recruitment agencies, but you've got similar stat just for your Washington DC.
Yeah.
So how it's so important to stand out. So how have you gone about standing out? How are you different?
If you want a good laugh, like something that I didn't realize happened, it's because of the Elite Recruiter podcast, which isn't even focused on like what I do for like work wise during the day, like the calls I've taken before this, the calls I'm taking after this. Like it just, because I'm posting so much, everybody in my space sees me. Like if I'm connected to you and you're in the government contracting space, I post multiple times a week. If you log on to LinkedIn, it's 100% probability that you're seeing my stuff at least once a week. So many times, like it's warm calls that we have. It's people reaching out to us. If you want a good laugh, like LinkedIn articles have actually like sent us a ton of work too. Like
that surprises me, but go on. Yeah.
Like I literally have a LinkedIn article that I posted 4 years ago that still like brings in like at least like 1 to 2 potential clients every other month.
And that's really interesting because just a bigger point about, you've got these government contract specialists who your potential clients, and they're seeing stuff that, I guess, what is it? You're putting yourself out there as a really good, knowledgeable recruiter, and they can see that you want to learn and you're always finding out more. But what you're not saying is I'm an expert. You're not talking their language to them, but they're still impressed by what they see. Is that right?
I mean, it's a little bit like I'll share the book. There's times we have like calls with like potential clients, and I'm like, here's exactly what you need. Like, you actually don't need a recruiter. You just need to do X, Y, Z. And here's the thing: they tell other people about that. So, and like even the LinkedIn articles, like literally the LinkedIn articles like that bring in the work is me telling these companies how to go find these hard to find people, highly cleared individuals. I'm telling them every single thing that they need to do. Like everything. Like, here's the entire book. I will share the entire book. But here's the thing. Like it's this thing with all information. People see that you have the information. They read the information. But sometimes it's too hard to implement. It's too hard for them to spend the time to go out and try to figure out X, Y, Z, or set up a system, or do this, or try to find these individuals. So that's where it comes into, oh crap, we need a recruiter.
Yeah, and that's the same for me. That's just, there are books out there. I haven't written mine yet, but there are books out there on pricing. And I think if you followed it step by step, you'd have a better pricing model than most recruiters have right now. But I've thought about this. Is that a threat to my business model? No, because it is exhausting to do everything for the first time. First of all, reading a book takes time. You're trying to run a business, you don't have that much time, but you can read a book. But to then go through it step by step and say, okay, so I need to do this. Okay, so I need to go out to my clients. I need to learn some things. I've never done any of this before. Oh, what if I make a mistake? Yeah, the psychological burden on that is huge. So actually, something with experience. One of the things that the value that comes from experience is you say, oh, I can do that. I'm confident in it. I know I can do that. I've got it scheduled in to do it already because I do it all the time. Whereas if someone gives you the book and says, yeah, now go call 10 people, and you don't usually call people as part of your job, it's not going to happen.
I mean, it's one of the things that like I've seen with it. I think it's been a shift in the recruiting industry. For the longest time, nobody wanted to share their secrets. Everybody was like, this is my secret sauce, which, the secret sauce is you at the end of the day. Many of us are almost doing the same things with like maybe a 1 to 5% variation, maybe 10% max. So like, but now it's shifted as, hey, let's all like kind of share our knowledge. Like if you need to hire a specialist, hire a freaking specialist that'll help you out. Hire a coach, hire whatever you need that can get you ahead. Like actually just had somebody on the podcast recently that hired 2 coaches and went from 0 to 600K first year, which like I had the conversation with her afterwards. And she's like, if I didn't hire the coaches, I'd probably be about 200K. Nice. If you need help with your pricing structure, hire a professional that will save you time, and that time will make you more money.
I endorse that message. So on specialists, and on what makes recruiters different, as you say, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of recruiters out there. You've talked to the creme de la creme. You've talked to the best of them. How do you see those top recruiters differentiating themselves? Because they don't deserve to get lost in the noise. They are the best. So how do they stand out to their clients?
I mean, it's a multi-factor answer. So we could probably spend like 3 hours doing a breakdown on what I have seen from observation on why these people win. It's a combination of like technology. Like the great ones are leading into tech. The great ones are also like great on relationships. That's like a superpower that I think is one of the most understated things. And I think it's one of the challenges that many recruiters have getting into this wonderful world of recruiting is, they're trained on these, like how to like just burn, smile it out. Like, I started my recruiting career at one of those, like, they catch you out of college, they train you up, hammer the phone, and then go whatever. So like, you're just so focused on what's next. But some of the great recruiters are killers when it comes to relationships. They're also masters of a niche. Like you cannot win and be a big biller forever handling everything. Now, if you are trying to handle everything, make sure you have a team behind you, like a bunch of contract recruiters or whatever to do everything. If you're just like this master lead generation specialist. But the one of the next things is like they are so protective of their time. Like they're willing to help you out. They're willing to have conversations with you. But like they crank out the work. They know exactly what they're going to do. They have the day planned out. They know like most of the time who they're going to call. How many recruiters at the very beginning of the day can tell you exactly the 25 to 50 people that they're going to reach out to? Most recruiters during the day are spending time trying to figure out what they're doing during the day. These guys like shut it down for a good like maybe hour towards the end of the day and like build out their list so that way on like first thing in the morning, these are the BD people I'm going to reach out to. These are the candidates I'm going to reach out to. This is what I'm going to do. And yes, recruiters are like, we handle all these fires and things go sideways 99% of the time and all that stuff, but they know what they're doing. They know what the goals are. And they know how to execute.
I love it. That reminds me, like so many times in my career, mainly in the UK, when I've sat down with recruiters, the top billers and the top performers and the most respected recruiters in terms of how they handle their time, how they, what they do as a recruiter, they work part-time. So maybe they've only got 3 days a week, because, well, various reasons, but let's say they've got family commitments or other things that mean they can't and have decided not to work full-time. If you've only got 3 days in a week, that forces you to be laser focused. You've still got a bill. And to be honest, you're usually compared to everyone else who's billing full time. And it's amazing how often that person working 3 days a week is top of a table and everyone else on that table works 5 days a week.
It's amazing how lost you can get in social media. You can get on TikTok. You can do all these things. Like because I know me, and I have an app on my phone that blocks all social media and news sites from like 8:30 to about 4:30. So I can't like, even if I pop it open, it gives me a little thing saying, "Hey, you can't touch us until XYZ time." Like, I mean, but look at the computer. How much time do we spend on Facebook? But think about this, John. When's the last time that you went on vacation?
Yeah, August. So it's October now. So went on vacation in August.
This thing called holiday that you were telling me about. I'm American. What's a holiday?
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other story. But like prior to going on holiday, that week before, how much work did you get done compared to the week before that?
Interesting. I see there's two sides to that. On the one hand, I'm like, right, I'll get everything done. I'll kind of prep before the time happens. On the other time, I am quite precious with my time. So I try and give myself a run off so that I can start getting ready for the holiday. So tell me where you were going with that.
But it's like, at least here, like we're workaholics here in the U.S. Like we just grind, and we like our vacations are with our phones still. But before we typically go on a vacation, those 2 to 3 days before you go on vacation, how much stuff do you actually get done? It's normally 2 to 5x more than you got done like the days prior, because you know how to focus. You have the time goal, but you have to like, recruiting is an urgency business, so you have to figure out how to do that without going on vacation every single day.
Yeah. And actually a plug just based on my experience. And also, by the way, first of all, what's the name of the app? Because I need it.
So it's an app called Opal, OPAL.
Right. We got that.
So if I like, I'm a news junkie because, politics and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Stuff happens.
Yeah. Just the way the world works. Like I just popped open Axios and it said, "Hey, it's blocked for the third time today."
Oh, so it tells you off more and more every time. I like it.
Oh yeah, and it gives me like a screen report and all that stuff. Yeah. But then like here's another thing that like is a wake up call. About once a year, I actually do a time audit of my day. So I actually have another app called Toggle, and I have it broken down into like time things. So every time I'm like doing something, I'm updating that time. Family time, running, working out, business development, writing content, like recruiting. So I do an audit of a week, and it's just so scary to realize like how much you actually were doing compared to what you thought you were doing.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to translate that into how do we get that value across to a client? And clearly it's not, I don't think it's by showing our app scores.
Oh yeah, no, don't show the app score, but like I think the biggest way is understanding the value that you need to bring into yourself, and how much time that you need to focus on your work, and how much time that you realize that you're thinking about work, but you're not actually doing the work.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest values for our clients is making sure that we're filling the positions with great candidates faster than everybody else.
Yeah. And just to add to that, because that's key. But the other thing, when I've talked to hiring managers, when I've talked to clients, they've said, look, one of the biggest things for us, one of the biggest issues, one of the biggest things we look for is good communication. And recruiters sometimes fairly in return say, geez, I do not have time to communicate with all my clients. But actually it comes back to that time management. If the top recruiters really value their time and really focus, then yeah, you make that time. You have the ability to communicate with way more people, because if they're working 2x, 5x what those of us who are stuck on social media are doing, then it feels like a superpower.
And it's like, I say like be on social media, but like save it for after hours. I get it. Like not everybody's going to have like a rock star recruiting TikTok account. And at the end of the day, like, is TikTok going to bring you the business, or is it going to be like you calling up somebody you've placed before and having that relationship conversation, helping them know that you're an expert and you're still in the game and still trying to be top of mind.
Yeah. Just another plug for stuff that neither you nor I sell or make any money from. When I set up, and I found this really useful and still use it, there's a book called The 12-Week Year. I think that's what it's called.
12-week era. Yeah, that's a good one.
So powerful. You're going to show me you've got it on your bookshelf there.
Well, it's one of those things like I'm actually like I thought about that, but then I realized I a good way to do a podcast is make sure you're plugged in like headphones, and it would probably like yank the entire computer over if I run over and grab it.
Don't literally walk away from this podcast. We're only 20 minutes in. So useful because it says, right, in a year, you set a goal in January and by December, you're like, oh, I've forgotten the goal. Like there's no urgency there. If you pretend that your year is only 3 months long, then the end of the year is in sight before you know it. The other thing is you can't set 20 goals and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do all these things. You have to be like, right, hang on, I've only got 3 months. I can max achieve 3 new things. So you focus on it and it works.
Yeah. And like, if you're listening to this podcast, you were all about like growing, making more money, fixing your pricing structure, figuring out how to build more. So, there are things that you have to probably put on the back burner. Like I truly believe you could do almost anything that you want to do in life, but you can't do everything.
Yeah, I like that. And because I'm wired to think of recruitment analogies, that makes me think of the people who try and pick up every role they can contingent. And then their goal in life is to have just a really long list of roles they are recruiting for. But of course they aren't, because they can't do everything. They can't communicate with those clients. They can't remember which job they're selling to which candidate. So again, picking a smaller number of clients, picking a smaller number of roles to work is a better way of doing it.
I mean, if you got all those agreements, like maybe you need to hire a recruiter. You're great on BD. Like that's another thing. Like talk to John about how to structure your business. Because if you were literally crushing it and getting all those agreements, which I've seen people do this, and then they just have no time for the fulfillment, like hire help. Talk to John. Hire help.
Yeah, and it's I'm not into business restructuring, but yeah, it's great advice. Everyone is talking about AI-powered recruiters, but what does that actually look like? With Atlas as your CRM, it means every interaction with your candidate is automatically captured and searchable. If they mention their salary in an email, it's instantly recorded without you having to write anything. And behind the scenes, Atlas discovers every company that a candidate has worked for, the industries those companies operate in, as well as things like company size and description. All this means you can do your job much faster and add more value to your clients. To learn more about Atlas, go to recruitwithatlas.com. And I do see more and more people doing this now. Like smaller agencies are like, hang on, the 360 structure, the 180 structure, we can do different things. We can have VAs doing this. We can have outsourced sourcing. You really can play to your strengths. Whereas for so long, recruitment was like, hey, you need to be 360. Oh, by the way, you need to be good at absolutely everything, which is, again, impossible.
And this like totally goes into our pricing conversation, but like, I really need to find another analogy other than like, there's 1,000 ways to skin the cat, but like there are so many things that you can do in recruiting to bring money in yourself. There's so many things that you can do in recruiting to take care of your clients. I think that, what used to be like a zero-sum game, like there's only like executive search and there's only, the contingency model has really expanded out. Like now you can do like contained. Now you can do like the 3 levels that you talk about a lot. And like, there are so many ways that we can win while still providing value to our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that message. And the key thing, the reason I talk so much about having a menu is because it's not for us to decide what our clients are going to want. That's almost impossible. You can't go in and be like, hey, I've chosen the right way for you to do this.
Talk about also managing expectations. Like, hey, if you want the lowest thing, like the expectations are lower, but if you want to go premium, we'll give you premium expectations.
If you're going to pay me double what you pay anyone else, I'm going to deliver on some amazing expectations. That's not expectation management. That's giving everything you can possibly give. That's the red carpet treatment. That's everything else. But that conversation in itself allows them to then say, 99% of clients don't say, yeah, I'll give you twice what I paid everyone else. But they then say, oh yeah, well, I'd like a cheaper one, but clearly I can't demand the world of you because we've just had that conversation. If I want the world, I have to pay a decent chunk of money, a decent fee to do that. And of course, there are clients who do that. And to identify those clients is really valuable. I think a lot of people, when you've got a one size fits all recruitment service, you come across a client who can pay you way more and wants so much more from you. You can't identify them because you sell them the same thing you sell to everyone else. So you want to give them that opportunity to say, yes, I want to pay you more money. My wallet is open. Take my money and give me an incredible service. That leads on to one of the topics I'm really interested in is how do we get clients to value recruitment more? So we talked earlier about recruitment isn't always valued. Your clients often don't give a crap about recruitment until they have to. So how do we raise the profile of recruitment? How do we make it more valued?
I mean, I think that's definitely a hard question to answer because recruitment is typically the most valued when it's needed the most. And when it's not needed the most, a lot of companies look at recruitment as like just a thing that needs to be done or to, fill this stuff. I think it's, one of the biggest things that we could do is just be the best that we could possibly be. We can't fix a crappy recruiter like dealing with that's been crappy to a client. We can't. Like if you want to take on a battle, like, there's 1,000 battles that you could take on. But what you could do is be the best that you could possibly be. Fill the positions. Like be the industry expert. And I think one of the secrets going into this wide world of artificial intelligence, because AI is going to ramp through a ton of recruiters. Like it is like recruiters don't have I believe most recruiters think of AI as a fad and a joke. They don't understand how fast it's evolving. So one of the things that we could do, be the best consultants that we can be. Understand the industry. Understand like how everything's going to play out. Understand if they go like in the GovCon space, if they go chase this work, it's going to open up XYZ, benefits, but it's also going to open up, A through C problems. You have to be such an industry expert that you have to be that consultant, that almost that high level consultant that the company needs, not just a recruiter.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought it on to consulting. Something I'm seeing, it's a real trend this year. More and more recruiters talking about offering a consultancy service. So stepping away from recruitment as their core service. Now, clearly, if they've got a background in recruitment, they're still talking to their clients about hiring processes. They're still talking about finding people. But it's a much more strategic level conversation. It's about, right, what are your objectives here as a business? Yes, you need people. Or actually, you may need people offshored. Or you may need teams resized because of technology changes. I can talk to you about people. I can talk to you about what other people in the industry are doing because we see that all the time as recruiters. Now, and that kind of solves the problem of recruitment only being valued when it's needed, because strategy and answers to difficult problems are needed surprisingly much more often than just hiring a few people. Now, you've said on a previous podcast, you actually do a lot of consulting work and often more consulting revenue than you do staffing revenue through placements. So talk us through how and when you made that shift to consulting and what it looks like.
We made that shift initially when we tried moving a TSSCI full scope data scientist from the NSA over to the CIA, and that process of the clearance crossover for TSSCI full scope poly ended up taking 9 months. And at the 9-month mark, And we like, 20, there was a 20% direct placement fee. Like we've been looking forward to this money for a while. Like the perfect person, like needle in the haystack. One of the only person with that skill set exists. We nailed it out of the park. His clearance didn't cross over from the NSA to the CIA. When a clearance clear doesn't cross over, guess what? That means they can't start. And if they can't start, guess what? We don't get paid.
So that
even though we found the perfect person. So and then it's one of also the things about like what I said at the very beginning of the conversation, the government contracting space is many times the government will award the work to the lowest cost provider, which is awesome, saving taxpayers' monies and everything. But when they won the work, like we had, there was a team a while back that called us up and they're like, hey, we won this program. We're having trouble staffing this up. We need some help. The other agencies aren't doing this or aren't they're trying. And I'm like, okay, let's do a deep dive. And, kind of came in as a consultant, if we were going to do recruiting, we would have benefited from the recruiting, but we started looking at their pricing structure. Wait, you guys are trying to pay data scientists with a security clearance under 100K. Here's a market, we provided a market map of what it looks like out there, the type of candidates that they're actually looking for and what they would actually be paid or what they're actually, all this stuff. So we actually had to help build out the case for them to go back to the federal government to renegotiate the contract. So
that's huge. And you can't wait for a placement to come through or we could have just said yes to working on it, spun our wheels, realized that everything's undervalued and they underbid the price, and it would have been oh cool, one of those signed agreements that you would have actually never filled. Yeah, I mean that's huge. I think a lot of clients see recruiters as someone they have to bring in, find me some people, and then the problem for us is I'll pay you when they start, forgetting that there might be some problems along the way. It's not easy. But for you to come in and say to that client, right, your contract is wrong, your business is wrong, you need to renegotiate the way you do business with your clients. That's huge, and that's a massive leap further up that value chain, to sit down with that client and say, right, you need to do business in a different way. How did you, I'm assuming people listening to this would be like, cool, sounds good. How do I do that? How did you open those doors? How did you start those conversations?
I mean, a lot of it is are you coming in as just a recruiter? Or are you coming in as if you need to change your job title on your LinkedIn profile, change your job title because, people weirdly respect that stuff, even though I don't care. But also how much information are you coming to the table with? How much information have you publicly put out there that shows that you're an industry expert? I mean, here's a stupid thing about information out there. All you have to do is add a little more out there, and your perception level is 10x compared to people that have zero brand. So some of the stuff there are times where we'll get on a call and I'm I'll just send them a LinkedIn article that I've published. I'm this is open and out for everybody. So here you go. Run with this. But it's just also knowing the space. We understand how the contracts work. We understand where the contracts are. We understand the struggles of this entire industry where 92% of the professionals that have a security clearance are actually working. This isn't a world where it's candidates are falling over you. This is a world where there's more jobs, more open positions than there are people that can actually fill them. And you can't sit there and magically give somebody a security clearance. It's a long drawn out process with the federal government. And we understand that. So we just have a lot of information that we bring to the table. And, this is going to laugh. We work for ourselves. Me and my wife, we have this business together. We are building this also as a lifestyle business. We're not building this as a company to sell and scaling it up to sell. So we can also kind of, if somebody to do this in the space, you maybe have to talk to your manager or talk to whoever about can we do a different business model within our business? Can I be an entrepreneur within our model to set up a different business? So we kind of it's just we saw an opening and we kind of like realized that we were doing it after we started doing it.
Yeah. But it's a huge insight, and it's the right thing to do. I think what I see, potentially there are opportunities maybe in bigger businesses when there's an experienced consultant. But then there are also, I often talk to business owners, leading, a medium-sized firm or a smaller firm, and they're doing the same work their consultants are doing. So they're the leader of the business. They've got the experience, the know-how, the ability to have set up the business in the first place. But they're coming across, as you said a minute ago, as just a recruiter. And actually, they're a business owner. They're an expert beyond everyone else in their business. They're probably an expert beyond most other recruiters in that sector, in that niche. So, for them to just come across as a recruiter is missing a huge opportunity. And then they are the ones who can say, hang on a minute, I have the expertise to consult with you, to look at your contracts with your clients and give you advice, or to look at your hiring plans for the whole business and say, whoa, hang on, things are changing. Or did you know some other businesses in the sector are doing this, whether it's offshoring or onshoring or whatever the latest trend is.
And it's also one of the benefits that we understand here in this government contracting space is the way that these proposals are submitted to the government. 90% or I would say about 95% of the companies are never talking to the recruiting teams about like what the salary numbers are when it comes to like pricing like these proposals to the government. They're using these like salary data sites that are great, but most of the time doesn't tell the real story.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Again, you could definitely sell that to the right type of client, the client who's thinking smarter and thinking, I need more than just data, because as you said before, we've all got the data. Have we got the expertise to use it right? So this has been so valuable and so interesting. We've gone through so much and we've learned so much about government contracting. I now want to get into government contract. Maybe. I ask most guests about negotiation because for me, negotiation is the difference between, is the measure of how much you've communicated your value. If you say your price and your client believes that you're valuable, they're likely to pay it. If they push hard on negotiation, maybe they didn't understand the value you create. In your world, there's a lot of procurement. There's a lot of big contracts. What does negotiation look like, and how do you overcome that?
So I suck at negotiation. I'm horrible at it. I'm actually in the next Recruiting Growth Summit in March. I'm actually looking for somebody to actually have a full on art of negotiation talk, just because I suck at it. Well, for me, I'm just like, cool, awesome. It is what it is. Like, take us, leave us. Like, I don't like. You're the one that has the contract with the government. You're the one that's struggling to actually get this stuff filled. You're the one that's actually going to lose the work if you don't actually fill these positions. Which that isn't my problem.
So are you saying you just name your price and then say, take it or leave it?
Yeah. Like if they say no, like we just say, cool.
Yeah. I think that's the best negotiation in many ways.
I'm not a smooth talker. That's my problem. I'm just like, all right, well, let me just get back to recruiting.
Yeah. And again, it's because you value what you do. And I think you have the confidence you're going to pick up other work. I like it. By the way, I've just started. I'm not sure you can get this guy on because he is high profile for your event, but this guy, it's a Harvard Business Review type thing, or Harvard University negotiation podcast, and the first one is Michael Jackson's lawyer and trying to do the deal, not for the dodgy stuff, for the music, but the music deals, trying to license Michael Jackson, trying to huge negotiations and some really challenging stuff. I'll make sure I post about it on LinkedIn, but there's some amazing things you can learn about negotiation. But I think you're in a good place by just saying, hey, it's your problem. This is how much I cost. If I don't fit into your plans, then yeah, we're not right for each other.
Yeah, we just understand the opportunity costs, because like every button seat that's not filled, they can't charge the government. Like I've seen companies lose hundreds of millions of dollar programs because the staffing wasn't done right, the recruiting wasn't done right. So if they don't want to pay for recruiting, I just watch them in the news a year later.
Yeah, and that is such a good way of framing your value, because you say, look, what is the client trying to achieve here? They're trying to deliver on hundred millions of pounds worth of value of contract. And you say, right, are we arguing over $500 per placement? And if this goes wrong, you lose hundreds of millions of dollars. Or should we just get on with it? And to the clients who say, this is really important that I fight you over $500, then you say, cool, I probably don't want to be introducing candidates to you. I probably don't want to be negotiating salaries on behalf of my candidates, etc., etc.
And I know we're running out of time, but if you want a good laugh, and there was a client that said no to us on some help, and we're like, hey, here's what XYZ, here's what's wrong. They ended up losing the work. And we actually, like, the follow-on company that won it because they lost it early, like, we actually helped them.
Perfect. I love that. So on that note, let's wrap that up. One thing I did want to say, you briefly mentioned your events. I highly recommend everyone listens to all of your podcasts, and there's a lot of them. There's a huge amount of value in there. You're also running these events, which are huge and super, super useful. So just generally, in a minute, talk us through what the events are and why you're doing them and how people get involved.
It's, trying to figure out what to do, like, with the podcast, which I still don't have a clue what I'm doing with the podcast. So it's just, I go from one random idea to the next, and, I definitely try out ideas. But one of the things that kind of just came from an idea is, like, let me just pull some of the speakers together. We'll call it a recruiting growth summit. And did the first one back in March. I was like, man, if I get 25 to 50 people to sign up for this awesome event, that'd be awesome. So ended up by the end of the week, 650. And then we did another one. We did an AI summit. We did another one that we just got done with that ended up having like 1,200 people, recruiters excited. So like with the recruiting growth summits, I make them free, which awesome. I'm sure I'm an idiot, and I'm sure I'm missing out on tons of money. And I'm sure we could talk about negotiation and pricing later, John. I might need some help with that. But I'm like, you know what? I remember the days when I was getting started. I remember the days when I couldn't afford whatever, but I wanted to get the information. I wanted to grow. So the recruiting growth summits, they're free. They're free for the live sessions. And if you want to copy the replays to be able to catch it afterwards, it's a small, like, I think it was like before the summit, like $99. During the summit, $149, and then after it, $249. Like, I had 32 speakers. Like, it was a $10,000 masterclass in 1 week. That it was really just set up because we, like, these large organizations that we're like competing with, like these big like Aerotex and Robert Half's, they have their sales conferences on a quarterly and a twice a year basis to ramp up their recruiters, ramp up their salespeople, motivate them to get out the door. When you're recruiting by yourself or with a small team, you have to motivate yourself. But what if you can get together in a room, whether virtually, and get around the motivation, get around the knowledge, get around the people that are winning. Like, the biggest thing is, like, in a digital space, whether you say you are the 5 people that you surround yourself with, well, in our digital world, the 25 people that you surround yourself with online will have a direct impact on where you're going to be 5 years from now. So, like, I just wanted to provide a room where people can get around and win. So that's what the Recruiting Growth Summit is. We're actually doing a sales summit in January, and the Recruiting Growth Summit is twice a year. So the next one's in March.
Awesome. I love it. I've got questions about your pricing, but for everyone listening, hey, it's free for the moment. So get involved while it's free.
So it's really just like it's a gateway. Like, if you only want to listen to like one talk and you want to watch it live, awesome.
Yeah. So good. And those numbers show how much people value what you do. You were aiming for 50 or 60, and you got hundreds and hundreds, now thousands. So people definitely value your insight. Thank you for sharing specific insights on pricing and value, my little niche. So it's been super helpful. Really appreciate it. So thank you, Benjamin.
Man, but I like listen to this podcast. Like pricing is probably one of those things that I wish I had learned 1.5 decades ago.
Yeah. So if you've got, when's the best time to do anything? Now, because you've got another however many decades to come. So it's great to have you on. Thank you again.
Thank you, John.
Thanks again to Benjamin for sharing some amazing advice on how to add value as a recruiter. 3 things stood out for me. First, his passion for the value that recruiters create in the world. He admits this wasn't always the case. He used to tell people he worked at Walmart, but he has clearly developed a strong belief in the importance of his role, and that informs how he works with his clients. Second, his question about whether you are coming in as just a recruiter. We have so much valuable information and insights we can share with our clients. So to be seen as only a recruiter risks leaving a lot of opportunities on the table. And third, the way Benjamin approaches negotiation. He decided that it's not his strength, but by simplifying his response, I think he's actually created a really powerful way to answer his clients' requests for lower fees. If you found the show valuable, please leave a review and remember to subscribe or follow the show on your podcast app. You can also get more insights and inspiration by signing up to my added value emails on Substack. You can find the link in the show notes. Now, go create some value. Thank you to Atlas for sponsoring the Value of Recruitment podcast. To learn more about how Atlas is creating an AI platform that helps recruitment agencies generate more placements with less effort, visit recruitwithatlas.com.